in my true fashion, I've ambushed Neil from MAXXIS, and Neil has come up with a topic that he wants to talk about, which is tyre rotations.
Yeah. So in terms of information we can give the public that can really help, that they don't often know about tyres, something that's important in terms of reducing the amount of noise that your tyre makes is rotations, and also alignment in terms of helping that. But rotation is something that people typically don't get a really good handle on and why you need to do it. So typically for a four-wheel drive tyre, the blocks are a lot bigger, okay, and they're quite a bit more independent on the shoulder here. And what happens is, if this tyre is rolling in that direction, each of these blocks roll around, touch the road, the front of the block touches the road and the back of the block gets dragged through. So you end up with this high-low sort of wear situation. The front of the block is quite high and the rear of the block is worn away. And then you see the tyres after a little while and they have this sort of up and down sawtooth,
Like scalloping
wear to it.
Yeah.
Now when that gets bad enough, it drags all the way across the tyre and you end up with diagonal wear. And it's quite bad on mud terrain tyres, which we don't have here, because the blocks are so independent and they're so big. So how we prevent that is by rotating the tyre around. And every 10,000 Ks we would recommend.
So not just doing like a cross rotation, actually flipping it on the wheel?
No, don't have to flip it on the wheel. Just make sure that when you do a rotation, one axle at least goes from one side of the car to the other. Because when you move it from this side of the car to the opposite side of the car, the tyre's running in the opposite direction.
Yep.
And what happens is it wears flat that up and down wear if you get to it early enough.
Sure.
Okay? So then the front edge of the block becomes the back edge of the block, and the tyre wears the opposite way and flattens out that wear, reduces the noise that is generated when you get that up and down wear.
Sure.
Because you've all heard them running, like four-wheel drives running past you down the street.
Absolutely.
That whoa, whoa, whoa sort of noise. That's largely generated by that irregular wear developing.
That's great. And on the bad wear development that you're talking about, is it possible to correct that in time, or once it's set in, it's there for life?
If you get to it early enough, and you effectively want to get to it before it occurs. So if you're rotating every 10,000 Ks, or if you're worried about it on a particularly aggressive mud terrain, rotate every 5,000 Ks at the start of the tyre's life, and that'll give it the best chance of wearing flat. Now, alignment and pressure also come into it, but rotation really helps from side to side, just to make sure that the tyre's running in the opposite direction.
So not necessarily front axle to rear axle, just on the same axle, just...
Oh, well, like a typical rotation pattern is bring the rear axle to the front directly and then cross-rotate the front tyres.
Yep.
That's fine, but just make sure you're not going only front to rear. Because if you go front to rear, that tyre's still running just
Same
front
direction.
to rear in both axles, but all of those tyres are still running in the same direction, and that whoa, whoa, whoa noise is just going to get worse and worse, and that irregular wear in terms of heel and toe wear is just going to get worse and worse.
I think that's great information. I'm so glad I ambushed him. Hope you are too. If you've got any questions, post them in the comments below. Thanks, Neil.
Hey, no worries.
Appreciate it, buddy.
That's all right.
So much value.